It's the game of ultimatum. The idea behind ultimatum is I'm offered a certain amount of cash and I'm to split it with you. And if you accept it, then we both keep the money. If you turn it down, then we both get squat. So if I'm offered $100,000 and I offer you $1, do you take it or not? Most people will say no. And it's because they perceive, hey, you're getting $100,000, you're only giving me $1. But if you look at it from the rational viewpoint, here are your choices. Get 0 or get $1. And so rationality says you should take the $1. But people don't respond that way. And the reason why they don't respond that way is because they view it as unfair. And that's a fundamental driver of people. We have a doctrine of fairness. If we're not believe we're treated fairly, then it doesn't matter what the stakes are. We just won't do it. An example is a friend of mine. He took me out for a steak dinner because I helped him with a project. And he wanted more sour cream for his baked potato, and then they charged him like 50 cents for the extra sour cream, and then he went through the roof. And the thing is, this guy was a multimillionaire. It's like, what's 50 cents sour cream? But it wasn't that. It had to do about the principle of the matter. And so here's something, and I put $1 out, put it on the table, and said, I'll pay for it. Just stop whining about it. And he said, no, it's the principle of it. And so that's the thing you find out about a lot of wealthy people. You think they throw money around. No, they don't. They care about a good deal. There's a reason why they became wealthy. And so this falls into the area of behavioral rationality. And so when we talk about bounded rationality, why does bounded rationality take place? And that's that we don't always have time to make a rational and optimal solution. And that's that people can only take on so much information. There's only so much information on hand. And also we make decisions based on how much time we have. For example, why do they put the candy bars by the cash register? Because we think about a candy bar, because it's an impulse buy. And if you think about a candy bar, you really don't need to have a candy bar. However, they put it by the cash register to pressure you, to shorten the time. So you want to buy one or don't you want to buy one? And so that's why they don't have them deep in the stores. They try to put them up front. And what bounded rationality has to do with is we arrive at the first satisfactory decision to us and not necessarily the most optimal one. And a lot of these theories, well, they're not necessarily theories, but observations. And what we find is that people behave in a systematic way. This has led to a field called prospect theory. And what prospect theory is, again, we have limited processing ability. We have biases, and those biases impact what we do. Not only that, but we also know what the probabilities are, what the returns on of what we're doing. And so a big part of prospect theory has to do with pain and gain. And that's that what they found out with people is that pain is valued 2 to 2.5 times, and a lot of people just say 3, round up. But pain is worth 3 times more than gain. And a lot depends on where your reference point is. For example, if your reference point is far up to the right, then your ability to get gain is very small. For example, supposing you're Mark Cuban, you're worth $4 billion. Well, to have gain for him, it is very difficult because he's so wealthy. And when he was making that classic cinematic masterpiece, Sharknado 3, the director wanted him to get angry. And he said, Mark, imagine somebody took $500,000 out of your wallet. And Cuban said, if somebody took $5,000 out of my wallet, I wouldn't even notice if it was missing. Different sandbox he plays in. But anyway, now what if I'm like a homeless person, no family, and destitute and living on the streets? Well then, in terms of my reference point, I would go way to the left. And so if you give me $20, all of a sudden that's a significant gain for me. On the other hand, if you take my jacket, the loss isn't that great because I'm already at the bottom. But the key concepts in looking at this is to look at the shape of the curve, how it's sloped, and also where the reference point is, and remembering that we value losses that much. We are greatly affected by reference points. They just took a wheel outside the United Nations and just asked people what percentage of African nations are in the UN. And so they spun a number and then asked the question. And what they found out is that people's guesses tracked where the number was. Here you're just picking a random number out of the air, but this is how big reference points affect our thinking. And it's because they set our perception. Some examples of reference points. Engagement rings. Who on earth set the standard that you have to spend 2 months' salary? The diamond industry, but it's become a de facto reference point. If you don't spend that money, then you're a cheapskate, and you're going to have problems with your fiance and her family. Tipping. Your waiter or waitress can do exactly the same amount of work, but it's based on what the cost of on your check. So should you really pay somebody $100 for about 15 minutes worth of work? Tipping is basically irrational. Here's an example that I'll leave you to read through, but think about reference points, and in a future day or something I will tell you what the solution is. And we'll wrap up the rest of this lecture talking about the next bounded rationality, and that's how we frame issues.